So many women claim that they can't afford it, but they really just like materialism and makeup and stupid things. You put your food last. You put your nutrition last because you wanted to spend it on eyelashes. You wanted to spend it on your acrylic nails. You know, you look at a girl who's got the newest phone, a Gucci bag. She's got all this crap, and then you're like, you can't afford a 50-cent more avocado?
Yeah.
Come on now.
So I already had this kind of inbred paranoia about eating certain places. And to top it off, when I was in my teen years, I knew like other people who were a bit older than me who was working in like places like McDonald's and other restaurants, and they would tell me some disgusting stories about what people do there. So I was just like, nah, man, I'm not trying to be eating out all the time. And if I go to an Asian restaurant, like maybe Indian restaurant or something like that, I usually find that the food there for me, it's just nowhere near as nice as that Indian auntie that's going to cook it in a house. It's like nice.
I mean, even with the red pill community, you know, they tell us that they want us to be better in the kitchen, but they also use it like this make me a sandwich comment, you know, like they also use it to degrade you. And the thing is, they really need to be ignored. When we are doing something like this, when we are developing a relationship with food, with cooking, with the kitchen, with our homes, with our kids, and all the many other areas, we're doing it for the sake of Allah. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam, ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum, everybody.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How's everyone doing?
Excellent. Ready for episode 2.
Alhamdulillah. Good. Alhamdulillah. Bikhair.
Bikhairim, well, alhamdulillah. So, yeah, like Marhan said, alhamdulillah, we've made it to episode 2, and I don't know if I'm ready, but I know you two are, so I'm looking forward to it. I've got my little notepad ready. I don't know if you can see I have my pen ready. But anyway, may Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala make our efforts beneficial, and may Allah accept our intentions. I mean, Inshā'Allāh, our intentions are right. It was narrated by the Prophet ﷺ that all of you are shepherds, and every one of you is responsible for his herd. A leader is a shepherd, a man is the shepherd over his family, and a woman is the shepherd over her husband's house and his children. So all of you are shepherds, and every one of you is responsible for his herd. So in short, everyone has a role to play in life. And this is by no means meaning that there is a one size fits all. You know, Islam is a life system, and where appropriate, we can take into consideration things like customs, personal situations, any personal limitations. There's flexibilities that exist. So it's important to note that we are approaching these topics in a general sense. Because I think sometimes with these conversations, there's a lot of, but I have this situation, I have that situation. These episodes, Inshā'Allāh, we want them to be a help. We want them to be a means of good, not a means of offending.
Exactly. Definitely, well said.
We've all been entrusted with duties and roles to play. We have rights over certain people, and certain people have rights over us. So each one of us have been entrusted with the protection and the care of those under us. That's what Muslim Mum Academy is all about, Inshā'Allāh. One of the topics that we're going to be touching on today is the kitchen. That's one of the many roles that we mums take on.
So one of the top questions we had was how our relationship with the kitchen was before we were Muslims and how it changed, obviously, when we became moms. So we have a double-fold question there. I guess I'll be the icebreaker, get the flow going. So before I was a Muslim and before I was a mom, I was in the roommate mode. It's very common in California for young people who can't afford their own apartment yet. I lived in some pretty tight living quarters. The people who own the apartment, they wouldn't let us cook. They would cook for themselves, but we were so many. So one of my dear friends bought me like a little tiny plug-in stove, and it was very small, but I did what I could. So I had to make tacos, you know, a lot of Mexican dishes because I live by a Mexican supermarket. I shouldn't call it not a supermarket, but it's like a large Latino market. So imported goods from Mexico. So I would make a lot of marinated meat with onions and cilantro and things like that. So in my younger years, I didn't have the opportunity to practice as much because I didn't have access to a kitchen, and my grandma didn't allow anybody to cook in the kitchen except for my grandfather. I worked in a pizzeria, and like a fried chicken place, so I would eat there and then come home, and then I'd eat at school. But as I converted to Islam, my passion for cooking grew more because it was a very honorable task as the gender role unfolded. When I became a mom, I was able to do whatever I wanted in the kitchen, and then that's when I really started to blossom, you know, because now no one can tell me what to do. My husband got me everything I needed, and I really just started exploring and exploring. So, all right, we're gonna put these molasses cookies in the oven. Very excited to see how they turn out. Alrighty, the cookies came out magnificent. The smell is just fantastic. And somebody's grumpy. They want to get held. So I will leave you with a thought of fresh molasses cookies.
So do you feel like not having access to the kitchen made you really curious and sort of like hungry to learn? Or was it just Islam that did that, like you understanding your role and things like that? And did that sort of make you want to take ownership of it?
Very good point. I always wanted to, because I wanted to eat something other than at restaurants. You get tired of it. I want my own food and I want to make what I want, but I can't. And then when I became a Muslim and you examine the gender roles, that's when I was like, it's okay to love doing that. It's okay to embrace it because it's mocked really heavily. You know, it's getting more and more now as I go in undercover to these gold diggers circles, how they degrade cooking. And I'm like, no, it's actually okay to love that. It's not something to be mocked. And so Islam allowed me to accept that I can love it and that it's not backwards or me not having my full potential. There are a lot of people who don't see that as something noteworthy. Yeah. But I did work in the restaurant industry. I was always around fine dining and different styles of food, and I would eat there, but I would watch the cooks and I would be in the kitchen as well. I've held different positions. I was able to be around my passion, even though I didn't have access to a kitchen of my own at that time.
Yeah, I understand. What about you, Summer? Like, what was your relationship with the kitchen before Islam, and how did that change after becoming Muslim, etc.?
I started learning how to cook when I was about, I think, 12 or 13, because my dad started teaching me, and I've always wanted to learn how to cook, and I've always been kind of that way inclined to do anything to do with like the house or do something with my hands, like in general. I've always been really, like, as a child, I was really curious about everything you could do with your hands. I was always interested, whatever it was, whether it's sewing, knitting. Even like my granddad, I remember I used to like follow him around like when he was working on his cars. So like literally anything you can think of that you can do with your hands, I used to be wanting to do it. I think at the time, like my mum, she was kind of like, oh no, she's too young and this and this. And my dad, like, he's African, so it's like in Africa, like you learn how to cook. You could be like 5, 6 years old, you're learning how to cook. It's normal, isn't it? But like we was raised in the UK, so from my mum's perspective, she's not from Africa, she's in the Caribbean. So basically she was like, oh no, he's too young and stuff. And my dad was like, oh no, like you can teach them. So I think I was about 12 or so. I'd been wanting to learn for quite a while, and then eventually around 12, 13, my dad started teaching me and stuff like that, like, you know, just basic things that my parents would normally cook at home. Taught me how to cook rice, and I'm really passionate about cooking food as well. But one of the bad habits that I had from early on was like I didn't like have the confidence to know when the food is completely cooked. For me, like knowing that it was cooked was like when it was burnt or almost burnt.
Yeah, best to be safe and sorry.
Yeah, like, you know, when it's like, so like for me, when I saw that the food was like slightly burnt, it's like, yeah, then I know, like, yeah, that is cooked in it. But anyways, alhamdulillah, like when I became Muslim and stuff, and you know, became a mom and like married and everything, like along the way, I've like learned how to cook from different people as well. I started to learn other ways that you can actually tell food is cooked without it being slightly burnt or burnt.
Nice.
Which is obviously nice for everybody else, and because I really do like to cook for people. But I think one of the things that I really do enjoy with the cooking is baking, actually. When I became a mum the first time, I really loved eating cake. So they used to have these like really long cakes, like Madeira cakes in the halal shop. And like when I gave birth to my daughter, I was literally going through one of those every week. Especially when I was younger, it's like if I don't have cake every day, like I feel like something's wrong. Like literally I could live in a bakery. Like those are my kind of things. I love all that kind of stuff. So anyways, my husband at the time, he was like, well, you know, you shouldn't be eating these cakes from the shop because, like, you know, store-bought stuff is not that healthy, and, you know, it's got additives and this. Because we used to really eat very healthy in general, like always cooking stuff from scratch most of the time. Like we'd hardly eat out. I've always preferred home cooking anyways. So he suggested that I should like try to bake and stuff. So then I remember like I used to bake with my grandma when I was growing up. She always used to make like just a plain Madeira cake as well that she used to do, and it was really nice. So I thought, oh yeah, that's a good idea. So I started baking. And I had a baking book, actually. It was a really good book, like one of these proper old school traditional ones with all the pictures in it. So like you see the picture of the cake and you can get excited thinking, oh, I want my cake to look like that. But when it doesn't, you just tell yourself, okay, next time, Inshā'Allāh. And I started baking, you know, different types of cakes and stuff like that, different textures, and just kind of learning. And not only that, but like one of the things with baking that you realize when you start is that every oven is different. And some ovens, they're better for baking than others as well. That was kind of how I started getting into baking. And, you know, alhamdulillah, I stopped burning the rice so much. I mean, it can still happen every now and then. But if you really are interested in doing something, you can like learn how to do it well. And I think now it's good because you've got YouTube. So even now I look on YouTube a lot for videos. If I think of something that I want to eat and I know I've never made it before, or I just want to get like more ideas for cooking, then you just open YouTube and like there's so many different types of foods that is available that you can try, and as well you can switch up ingredients sometimes, because if you live in a place where a certain ingredient might not be accessible to you, you try to make the best with what you've got. I think in that way, like being Muslim helps because I was exposed to more cultures, and seeing how like other women cook and stuff like that, especially like Indian, Pakistani. So I love Asian food so much, because I think for me that's like food that I find is more closer to the food that I was brought up eating, because my mum's from the Caribbean. It's not exactly like Asian food as such, but they use a lot of similar or the same ingredients.
Spices.
So the flavors can be different. But I think from the Asian food in general that I love the most is probably, if it's either Thai or Sri Lankan. And the Sri Lankan food that I've had so far, like is literally the taste, it just takes me back to like the Caribbean food that I was having when I was growing up. Since being Muslim, being around a lot of Asian aunties that I've learned a lot of like cooking tips from, especially like lentils and the dal. I love dal. So that's one of my things that it's my go-to food.
I really don't know how to answer this question, if I'm honest. Like, I understood why it was important that everybody sheds light on their sort of background, because obviously we are all coming from different backgrounds. Before I was Muslim, I definitely did not have a clue what I was doing. My childhood was a wee bit different. It was difficult, so I was homeless from a young age, and I just wasn't nurtured in that way. Like, I was in survival mode. Survival mode is like student food, but toast and beans. You will not know what that is, but it's amazing. Okay,
It's legit, man. It's literally legit.
Toast and beans
Baked beans
with
on,
cheese.
baked beans on toast.
Yeah, but you have to have cheese, like really mature cheddar.
I had it with black pepper. I did.
On the cheese or on the beans?
On the beans. Simple, lazy comfort food. It's just fantastic.
It's like proper student food. You just put the beans in a pot, you add a little bit of this and that. Like a lot of the times I'll make curried beans as well. Like that's something that I'll do nowadays. Which is really nice.
Yourself,
But do you know what it is? I was speaking to a friend about this, right? So like I was saying before, I was Muslim, never really got nurtured in that way, never got taught to cook. I think the only meal that I got taught to cook was bolognese, and it was because I was living with an auntie and she knew that I loved it, hence why it's still a staple in the house. That was the only thing that I had learned. Everything else was like breakfast stuff that I would eat at dinner time. Like that's how I survived. But after becoming Muslim, I was looking for structure and stability, coming from a lack of structure and stability. So when I started to understand, what is the role of a woman in the world through an Islamic lens, I wanted to try and perfect that. I was coming from a really blank slate. Let me just be clear. You'll never hear me say my cooking is good. I won't say it. I won't say it. My kids say it, but I don't know if they're just saying it because they need to. But my sort of cooking is more Somali, because my kids are Somali and I was around that environment for 14 years. So like bris and hilab, basto and sugo, angelo, sokar, sambosa, dagag, all of that I can do.
So I've never heard of those dishes. I don't even know what Somali cuisine looks like.
I think Somali food is similar with maybe some Ethiopian food, and I know a lot of Ethiopian sisters. And I'm telling you, the food that they make is not some simple something,
People who were teaching me how to cook Somali food, they really did teach me incredible values in and around it, why it's important that we put our best efforts into the food. I was incredibly insecure about it because I was walking into a culture that is really firm on these sort of principles. Like women of all ages in the Somali community know how to cook. It's a given, and I was incredibly insecure walking into it. But because of that, I am, I guess, who I am now. And my kids are still alive, so that's a good sign, right? I haven't poisoned them or anything. I think what's important is you don't need to start off with that love. Some people have it naturally, like yourselves. You had natural curiosity. For me, I didn't. Also, like I have some friends who you can just put them in a kitchen and you can just give them some ingredients. And it doesn't even matter if it's in line with what they usually cook. They'll be able to say, right, okay, maybe we can do that with this and maybe we can do that. And you actually see them coming together and their minds going.
It's definitely something that if you keep working at it, you get better and better. And not everyone has the knack for it or the passion. But I think everyone can be capable of breaking away from the dependency on restaurants and risking your health, It's very common, food poisoning in restaurants. And I've seen even the nicest restaurants I worked at, Some of them people is just plain nasty. You'd be surprised, you know? I saw so many sick cooks touching people's foods. You wouldn't believe it. If you called in with the flu, subhanAllah, you can get fired. 2 times call in a month, you're gone. I mean, they rotate staff heavily. So you'd have sick staff. I mean, I worked sick. I was afraid to tell my managers, I'm very ill, I need to go home.
I think takeaway culture and eating out culture definitely is something that we should be wary of. Like, I know some people have busy lives and full-on jobs, and some people don't really have choices. Again, we're just speaking generally, right? But to get yourself into a habit, especially in this country where like everything is easily done from your phone, everything is so available. I mean, even here, like in Glasgow, I have to say that we have some of the best takeaways in the country. There's so much temptation. It's tempting for many reasons, not only the food itself, but also freeing up time, the dishes, and, you know, like there's so many different reasons why you can convince yourself that it would just be beneficial if you did it this way. But like you said, what you do then is you compromise on the quality, you get yourself into a potential habit, which can cause you financial issues. It can become a dependency thing. You might start resenting the kitchen. You know, like there's so many different things that it can tap into that we do need to be cautious of. We shouldn't allow it to overtake us. And I do feel like we are living in a culture where it's so easy to do and so many people are doing it. And also, I think if you add to that, you know, in my generation growing up, we weren't really taught to cook in the way that my mum's generation were taught or my grand's generation were taught. Like these were values that had to be taught because the mum had to, you know, look after the home because the husband had to go out and work. But there's so many options now that we never had back then. There's a lot of teenagers, male and female, who are not learning to cook, and these are life skills. Because of that, they are then becoming dependent on other people cooking for them.
And when you're pregnant, I really think that you should try to eat at home more often and not be as, you know, subservient to hoping, you know, that the staff is healthy and whatnot.
What you guys are saying about food and restaurant stuff like that, all what you said, especially Milan, like literally my parents raised me telling me all this kind of stuff. So I already had this kind of inbred paranoia about eating certain places. And to top it off, when I was in my teen years, I knew like other people who were a bit older than me who was working in like places like McDonald's and other restaurants, and they would tell me some disgusting stories about what people do there. So I was just like, nah man, I'm not trying to be eating out all the time. And if I go to an Asian restaurant, like maybe Indian restaurant or something like that, I usually find that the food there for me, it's just nowhere near as nice as that Indian auntie that's going to cook it in her house. It's like night and day difference. So for me, it's just like I'm always disappointed, like the fact that I've gone out of my house, spend money, and then sit down someplace, you know, and eat something that for me I could have had 100 times better coming out somebody's kitchen.
Narrated Abu Hurairah radiallahu anh, Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the food for 2 persons is sufficient for 3, and the food of 3 persons is sufficient for 4 persons. Sahih al-Bukhari.
A lot of people love the whole going out and like sitting down in fancy restaurants and taking photos of a fancy plate. I'm just not that way inclined. So for me, it's just like I love, you know, being around people that you love, your good friends, family, having a good hearty meal at home, something that's been home cooked, whether you cooked it, whether somebody else cooked it, whether you know, cooked it together. No fancy restaurant is ever going to be able to take the place of that, you know, because I don't take pleasure in leaving my house for disappointments. And I find that most of the time when I've gone to outside restaurants, I have been disappointed.
Exactly. Like when I go out to eat, I want to have something I can't make at home, and that's why it's usually sushi. And the only reason why I go to get sushi is because it's very hard for me to find a fishmonger on the days where my husband can't take me. And so I will go out for sushi once in a while to my favorite places that are consistently good over the years. And that's because sushi is my favorite food. So that's the only thing where I'm like, if we're going to go out, it's got to be, you know, sushi.
Yeah.
You know,
Listen,
so I totally get what
I
you mean.
want to be honest. I do like going out for something to eat. I do. But again, I'm just saying,
Tea is different. You know?
Glasgow places are different. That's all I'm saying, right? I'm going to say
Yeah, different culture, right?
I could be convincing myself to make myself feel better, but this is what I'm saying, okay? Glasgow is different. We're allowed. I do definitely agree, though. Even though it is nice, like some people do it socially. But I have 4 kids. Like, I'm cooking all the time, you know. Like, I'm in the kitchen all the time. So sometimes a day off for me is going out or getting something in. However, I am very aware of the sort of cycle that can create if you get too comfortable doing it. To better your relationship with the kitchen is to have a clear understanding of why you're supposed to have that, why you're here, and who and what you're doing it for. In the Quran, Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala says, "But those who do good, whether male or female, and have faith, will enter paradise and will never be wronged, even as much as the speck on a date stone." You know, this is your network of people in the house. So their happiness is your happiness. Their success is your success. Their health is your health. Like, you are investing everything, your time, your energy, and your efforts into them, the dedication to them and their health and their success. You know, you want to instill values into your kids that maybe you never had growing up, because you understand the other side, you understand what it's like not to have it. You develop that relationship with your kitchen or any other duty that you're responsible for. You take ownership of it, you take pride in it, you understand why you're doing it and the benefits of you doing it from home, like cooking from scratch. There's nothing like a homemade lasagna. Nothing like it.
Homemade
Yeah.
lasagna, that's the one, you know. I remember, and it was just, I was making everything from scratch, tomato sauce, the bechamel, everything. It was just like, yeah, it was all the rage. It was so good. I really felt proud of myself when I started making that lasagna. You feel that you've like achieved something as well. I think that's one of the nice things about cooking and learning how to cook something new, and especially something that you know that you already like. It's one of the ways I think that it helps to just improve your confidence in general. I think you might not say that you're the best cook in the world or even a good cook, but if you know that you can sit down and eat something and feel happy that you've made something that, you know, is really tasty and, you know, satisfies you, then I think that's an achievement. And if you make something and your kids tell you that it's good as well, that's enough for me, to be honest. Like, literally.
Definitely. I think a kids thing is a big thing for me. Like, when the kids tell me that
because
they like,
don't lie, you know, they will tell you straight. If your food ain't nice, they will tell you. And if you've done something funny with your food, they will tell you. They will never let you forget it. I made a dodgy soup one time, and up to now, my kids will remind me about that soup. Anytime I go to make soup, they will remind me of that one dodgy soup that I made.
Oh,
they do.
Can I tell you a funny story, actually, because you just put me in mind of one? So my kids must have been about, they're all very similar in age. So like they must have been 3, 4, and 5, right? So quite young, right? But old enough to talk and complain. And I remember I was making bris and hilab, which is meat and rice, right? So I was making bris and hilab, and I was putting some spices in the rice and in the meat, etc. So I was putting paprika in there with other things and everything. And it was close to bedtime, so I got the food out quickly, put it in all the wee bowls, took it into the living room, got the kids to start eating, and then I went in to fix some things in the kitchen. And when I went back into the room that they were eating in, I just remember seeing 3 horrified faces, like proper, as if they were in severe pain. And I was just like, you know, what's wrong? What's wrong? You know, like, and at that time I had been cooking for a good few years, so I wasn't always tasting the food. You do that in the beginning when you don't really know what you're doing, but when it has been a routine and you're sort of know what you're doing, you just everything gets thrown in second nature. So I didn't actually try the food. So I was like, what's wrong? What's wrong? They couldn't talk. Like, they couldn't talk. So I went into the kitchen and tried some of the food, and I thought I was putting paprika.
You put cayenne pepper?
I put chili powder in. I was putting chili. It's the same colour. And all my days, I felt so guilty. And honestly, like, I didn't cook small portions, so I had wasted, like, you know, so much lamb.
So a bummer when that happened.
So much, all my days with the poor kids. I did learn my lesson that even if it's second nature to cook certain dishes, that I should always try it, though, just to make sure that it's just right. So we're on to the good part of the episode, because it's the part where I'm going to take notes. So tips and tricks.
When I do for more larger gatherings, that's where you get into the casseroles. That's why I've been doing so many casseroles. Okay, so the eggs are done for the casserole. I put a little bit of milk and vinegar and salt so they can have a nice color and texture. They're nice and fluffy. This is the chicken apple sausage white gravy that'll be a topping. Here is the pancake batter base. Alright, this is the sliced turkey that'll be sprinkled on top as well. Alright, so we've put it there, the pancakes obviously were cooked in there, layered the scrambled eggs on top of the pancakes, then took the chicken apple sausage gravy, poured it on top of the eggs, then put the layer of cheese, then put the turkey slices on top. This will bake, and then when I serve it, we'll drizzle some maple syrup on there. Definitely a comfort food. All right, I'm gonna put this bad boy in the oven. If you're gonna do a casserole, you can have yourself a nice huge salad bowl and then serve a salad on the side. You can fill people up with appetizers and then the side dish and then the casserole. And then if you want, I do a lot of desserts at the end. So there's ways to make people full without having to put it all in one dish.
Do you cook your own puddings as well?
You mean like chocolate pudding, vanilla pudding?
Oh, sorry, desserts. Sorry, we call desserts puddings as
Oh,
well.
pudding is a dessert. It's all from scratch. I don't use anything like no cake mixes, no frosting mixes.
I'm sure my kids want me to take their notes specifically.
Yeah, that's why I practice with a lot of different baking methods, even different jellos. Jello salads. It's really quite unique.
Jello salads?
Yeah, like a cherry jello, put in some whipped cream, mandarin oranges, some rice, mix that up.
A fruit salad, right? Okay, I'm getting it. I'm understanding. We're having to sort of sieve through the language right now. Okay, a fruit pudding.
Wouldn't that be similar to what we have as trifle?
A trifle, yeah. Have you ever seen an English trifle? So it's like jello with the fruit, like you were saying, like jelly with the fruit, and then you have custard and cream and some sprinkles and stuff. Oh, come on, man! Why have you not started the Scottish cooking? Hello, I thought you were pals, Neverhan.
After I finish the Amish and the Mennonites, then I can move on to some Scottish stuff. Because I've been going through a vintage Americana journey.
Yeah.
I've discovered all these little vintage cooking books of like pioneer 18th century cooking because I want to preserve those recipes. But when it comes to European food in particular, that's definitely in the works in the future. So,
what about you, Summer? Like, I know that you love baking. You've told us that, and I've known that firsthand for a while. Because every time I try and harass you, you're telling me how you were baking something new or trying something out. Like, what sort of things do you find yourself doing nowadays? And like, what sort of tips and tricks and stuff do you have for the people? Share the wisdom, share the knowledge.
Okay, well, with regards to baking, since I've moved to Ghana, but finally, alhamdulillah, I've been able to actually realize my dream of baking bread. Okay,
So here we have just some pocket breads that I made. I start with making the dough, which is very simple, and then roll it into small, like little balls to separate it. I always make sure that I dust the surface or the cutting board in this case to make sure that the dough doesn't stick. And then I take one of the rolls of dough and roll it out. So I've been doing this for a couple of years now. I'm still not perfect when it comes to doing it, but alhamdulillah, it's edible, so that's the main thing. So after they've been flattened, I usually put them into pile, then I put them on a tray and put them in the oven. They're in the oven for like maybe 2, maximum 3 minutes. Like you want them to be cooked, but not, too brown, because then they can get really hard when they cool down. So yeah, I'm just taking them off the tray now. They're really hot, obviously. I burn myself a lot of the time. Those are the flatbreads. Put them in a pile and let them cool down. And then, that's my batch baking pretty much done.
Recently, I've been making like focaccia, the Italian
I love
bread,
focaccia.
and that's nice because you can switch it up. You can like put different herbs in it. You can put like sun-dried tomato. You can put olives. Mushroom. You can do all sorts of that. Like you can like literally just do a lot of different things. So it's quite fun. I've made pizza from scratch a few times as well. That's gone down real good too. Like a nice like proper like Italian style pizza. What I usually do, I bake in batches because I don't have time to bake every day, unfortunately. And bread does take some time, whether you're waiting for the bread to rise or you're actually having to do the rolling of the dough, which with pocket breads, there's a lot of rolling involved. So actually I did before. The recent one, they literally, I don't know what happened, but I think I was just so busy with like other things in the house, and I'd left the dough out for too long to I think the yeast had activated way too much. I probably should have made the farmhouse loaf instead. It probably would have come out better like that, but it didn't come out good for the pocket bread like how it should, because the pockets didn't open. But this time I had learned the pockets they was properly legit. So alhamdulillah, I was happy about that. But mashallah, my husband is nice and he's patient with me, so whatever I make, he eats it. Alhamdulillah, he never complains. Mashallah, may Allah bless him. Like literally, he's like easygoing when it comes to this stuff. He just appreciates the fact that I try to make something.
I can't bake, if I'm honest. I really can't bake. I can make a really nice tiramisu. I'll make it during Ramadan, or I'll make it if we're having like a sort of family or guests coming, friends coming. I'll make it because I know that they like it. And I make angelo, which is not baking. It's like Somali versions of crepes. I think that's
okay.
probably the best. It's probably not how they would describe it, but that's how I'm describing it. But you can make them sweet, and they can have them sweet for breakfast. That's usually how they have it. They'll have it with tea. Or you can make them not sweet. You can make them sort of savoury, and they have it with another breakfast that's called sokar. And sokar is like chopped up, diced, sort of small bits of beef that you fry with like some peppers and stuff like that. And you just sort of use that as the bread, or, you know, in other cultures it would be like very similar to the chapati, or, you know, the paratha and things like that. So, but it's a pancake, pretty much. It's like a
Nice.
crepe type pancake.
We're going to need to put like a disclaimer at the beginning of this video that people are going to probably really feel hungry from listening to this, because my husband made me a sandwich at the beginning of this, so I'm okay right now. But I think if I hadn't eaten, I'd be literally feeling like I'm dying.
Tease, like if somebody was going to come to me and say, you know, I have many kids, how do you cook real food quick? Then I've got you. Like a one pot sort of situation is my jam. Like for me, it was to get the realest food as quick as possible.
People
And
can marinate meats the day before, right? So you marinate your meat the day before, you brine your turkey, you brine your foods, and then you
Yes,
can
definitely.
meal prep half of it the first day, and then you got it halfway done the second day.
I actually have a friend, she's in a situation where she has to bulk cook. So every weekend or every last day of the week, weekday, so like on a Friday or something like that, she will bulk cook for the full week. And she has 4 kids, you know, so she will make everything. So she will make, you know, a big pot of pasta sauce, or she will make, you know, like you said, a bulk of meat. And then the only thing that she'll cook maybe on the day is the rice to go with it, or the pasta, you know.
Nice.
So that the sort of stuff that can take you long is sort of already done.
You have a pantry, you can jar, pickle, and get things kind of sealed and ready, right? And to have some of your homemade soup jarred. If you have a pantry and you have space, do that, you know?
I think when it comes to pickling stuff, I've sort of gathered through our conversations that that's not really my thing. That's your two things. I've seen a relationship flourish between you two over
Yeah.
fermenting things and stuff like this. And I remember one day I was just kind of observing the conversation. I had zero to add because of it.
And jams too, you know, like a lot of women, they can have a nice stocked pantry and really get some things going, you know? Like you can even make some biscuit mixes that you want, or some cake, your own cake or cinnamon roll mixes ahead of time. Just portion it out, stock it up, you know? Dried fruits that you can rehydrate. I mean, all kinds of fun stuff. You just gotta get creative. Like today I'm gonna make a dessert, a pear dessert.
This is the pear dessert that I got from the Mennonite cookbook. I feel it's going to come out very savory, almost cobbler-like. We have some water, pears, sprinkle of nutmeg, and then the dough crumbles, I use duck tallow instead of shortening. And then it has organic non-GMO cane sugar, organic non-GMO all-purpose white flour. Pretty simple ingredients. I'll put the recipe in the description box below. We're gonna pop this bad boy in the oven, and then I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. Okay, so this is the pear dessert when it's fully caramelized, and wow, I mean, it really came out nice. I did, obviously, when I poured the water in, some of the sugar got on the sides there, and when sugar heats up, it crusts like that. But what's most important is, and that's quite natural when you're caramelizing. So everything looks well put together. I'll scoop it up, and then I'll show you what it looks like. Wow. I tasted it. This recipe is so simple, yet the way the flavors just mix together, it almost tastes like it has more to it, but maybe that's just making food with love. So wow. You could also serve this with some vanilla bean ice cream, some butter pecan ice cream. Here's what it looks like with whipped cream. I had to show you because, ooh, it's just so good.
Once you start making a lot of things at home, the flavor and how full you get and the spiritual connection to your food actually rejuvenates you more than if you were buying something made from a machine that was shipped in from China, you know? It goes a long way. You'd be surprised how when you start having almost a spiritual connection with the kitchen and your food, the way you feel after you get done eating the food actually makes you feel more full.
Because if you get good in quality ingredients, that's what happens.
Yes, especially like fresh tomatoes, especially good quality cucumbers, good romaine lettuce, stuff like that, like quality eggs from a healthy chicken that isn't stuffed in a cage, you know, quality milk from a healthy cow. just the flavor and the nutrients, like they fill you up. It took me a while to learn that in the younger years, but as I got older and started experimenting with different kinds of foods, you're like, yeah, the quality makes a big difference. You know?
I think the thing is, though, is we do live in a day and age where pesticide-filled crops and stuff are the cheapest, and the sort of organic and healthier stuff is really expensive. That's the way it is here anyway.
Yeah,
Like,
it is.
there's been
But
a lot
the way
of...
I look at it is, if they're buying iPhones, whatever, you're buying perfumes. So many women claim that they can't afford it, but they really just like materialism and makeup and stupid things. I don't want to be rude, but if you can't budget for your own food and then you get cancer or ulcers or liver problems, you put your food last. You put your nutrition last because you wanted to spend it on eyelashes. You wanted to spend it on your acrylic nails. You look at a girl who's got the newest phone, a Gucci bag, she's got all this crap, and then you're like, you can't afford a 50-cent more avocado?
Yeah.
Come on now. Come on.
No, definitely there is a lot of people in hardship, but where are we putting our money? Like, where is it being spent, and can we invest a little bit more in this area so that the quality, so that the health, so that our ability to sort of be better in other areas of our life are within a chance, because we're giving our bodies the sustenance that it needs.
Yeah, and some women, you have a backyard.
Definitely.
You can grow a tomato plant. You can grow an eggplant. You can grow
Exactly.
cilantro, chamomile.
If you think about the most expensive, vegetable, it's worth trying to grow it. I haven't done it yet, but Inshā'Allāh I will. Usually, like with plants, I was quite good with growing other things like flowers and stuff like that. I always seem to be okay with growing those. So
But you can make different teas, like different flowers for different teas, and you can even trade that. Like, try to find a community and normalize. I'll trade you these flowers I grew for like a beautiful bouquet that's worth $20 for a bushel of tomatoes. Like, I have put my foot.
I've discovered that there's so many flowers that are actually edible.
Yeah,
like literally, I was growing them and I didn't know.
You put them in your salad.
And like you said, to make tea from them, you could put them in salads, you could do all sorts, and they've got a lot of nutritional benefits as well. And apart from that, obviously there's the element of making your own beauty products too. So that's another something that you can do with them. So there's like so much variety, so many things that you can be doing. Once you go down the rabbit hole, it's just endless. Just subhanallah.
I think that sort of leads me on to my next question, by the way, because I think what is evident is that these sort of things are achievable, but the thing that we need to do is access the knowledge. And sort of someone was to come to you and say, listen, I never learned how to cook. But she wants to learn. She wants to better in that area because, she knows that this is going to be one aspect of her life, but a very important one.
I would first tell her, learn how to become familiar with different types of rice and different types of beans. Those are staples of cooking, right? And so I would argue, learn how to cook red rice, wild rice, black rice, different basmatis, brown rices, bamboo, green rice. See how they taste so that you know how to make them, how to rinse and sort them, and with the beans as well. And then you'll start learning how to combine them and then branch upwards and out. I would tell her, start with the easiest cuts of meat concerning beef, and then the easiest cuts of chicken. For example, go with a chicken breast, boneless, skinless, before you move to roasting an entire chicken. Because if you don't cook it right, it's pink in the middle, you screwed it up, dinner's ruined, right? Start with the smaller steps, then you can start to be the octopus and combine all of them. Different chicken stocks, bone broths, learning how to utilize dried herbs versus fresh herbs, learning about the different types of flours, rye flour, wheat flour, all-purpose flour, pastry flour, blue corn masa. Taste different cheeses. It's something that has calcium. It's a flavor additive in your food, and it adds texture, body, and makes you more full. So taste the cheeses, what they're like when they're fresh cut and when they're cooked. Like when you bake feta, it's going to taste different than when you just crumble it and put it on a salad, right? And so I would encourage them to start with those components, and then you can branch out. You've literally opened the door for enthusiasm to come through and make you more excited about cooking. You begin to paint a different picture of culinary opportunities.
You're really stripping it down to the bone, and you're getting to the core, to the real foundation of becoming independent,
very confident in the kitchen,
confident and skilled.
I love my buddy. Melahan knows. That's all I can say, because half the things that she was saying, I thought she was speaking in tongues because I didn't even understand half of what she was talking about. Like she talks about things that I don't even know. Like literally, so much. Like
it's really informative. We're taking inspiration here.
Jazakallah.
Okay.
I think for me, like what I would say is try to stick to the basics and start with what you like, and look into natural food. Look at where your food's coming from. So try to come away from all the takeaways and all this kind of stuff. And if you're somebody who has been having all these takeaways and things, look into how you can make that from scratch, from your own ingredients. Alhamdulillah, we've got YouTube now, so there's really no excuse for anybody not to be able to try at least to do these things. Right? Even the beans on toast that we mentioned in the beginning, those beans is, what is it? It's white beans. Okay, so get the raw white beans, soak them, you know, overnight or whatever, then cook them. Learn how to make the sauce to actually cook them in, so you can make your own actual baked beans. You know, so like you can just start simply like that, because if you don't know where to start, that's the best place, is to start with what you already know and what you know that you like. Those are the tastes you're going to be more familiar with. Becoming Muslim, like for a lot of us, that's one thing that kind of opens up a lot of doors for us when it comes to the food, because Muslims love eating and the cultures are so varied and different. If you're in a Muslim community with a varied culture and get an opportunity to taste other foods, then that can be another starting point for you as well. You need to just experiment and try new things. And to be honest with you, I would say sandwiches. I really love sandwiches. I know that sounds so basic, but you can do a lot with a sandwich.
I love a sandwich.
You can literally take any different ingredients that you like and put it in you know, 2 bits of bread. And we know there's so many different types of bread as well. Do you know what I mean? So that's another place that you could go.
Awesome.
You know?
Yeah. I think for me, I think the advice that I would give is your relationship with the kitchen or your relationship with cooking doesn't need to be something that comes natural. It is something that you can learn and you can develop. You just need to sort out the knowledge. You need to ask questions. Don't be shy. Take that time to learn. Another area that we didn't touch on, but maybe this can be another episode, because I don't think our episodes with cooking is over, but definitely looking at prophetic foods and superfoods and how we can incorporate that into our cooking and why it's healthy and beneficial for our bodies and things like that. Sorry, let me just get Summer in. But it is just about investing in yourself and being kind to yourself through the process. Like Summer was saying earlier on, you are going to make mistakes along the way. You are going to be paranoid about, is your food cooked properly, or is it undercooked? Is the right amount of seasoning there? It can be a very vulnerable position to put yourself in. But if the people around you, very similar to Summer's husband, as she was saying earlier on, if the people around you see you put the effort in and see you trying to build on that skill set to benefit them and to, because you love it and because you want to do something nice for them, they will support you through it. The feeling you get knowing that the people around you love your food and love for you to cook and are grateful that you've done that for them, there's just, what other sense of satisfaction can you get? We're trying to give our people, whether it be our family or our friends, guests and whatever, we're trying to give them the homely experience. This is my home and this is also your home. Eat, enjoy, and you know, these are really, really great characteristics to have and to work on. Inshallah.
Very cool.
We've mentioned a lot of really delicious sounding food today, and I just want to let people know that, you know, sometimes people don't have money to be able to purchase certain things, but I think that's where a lot of us need to try to think outside of the box a little bit and try to expand our knowledge about where food comes from. And if we do that, we'll realize that we probably have a lot more on our doorstep than we actually realize when it comes to food. But because of the cultures that a lot of us in the West have been raised in, we've been trained to hate a lot of things in nature that Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala has actually put there for our benefit. So for those people who don't have, you know, financially, maybe they're thinking, oh, well, I can't afford all these fancy things that you guys are talking about. Well, you know, neither can I. You know, most of the time I can't afford them. So I have to make me making food from scratch and going back to the bare roots is how I'm able to actually eat some of the foods that I know that I really like and enjoy. Like I'm living in West Africa now. Milk is quite expensive here, like the real milk, because you don't get it everywhere. And milk for them is something that comes in a packet. They usually eat have powdered milk. So, you know, you can get like fresh milk, and I have like a Muslim area where the Muslim ladies, they milk cows and stuff like that. So we can get it, but I have to travel to actually get that milk. It's not something that I can just go to the shop and buy it. And then from that milk, I'll make yogurts, I'll make cheese, you know, and I'll drink the milk as well. So, you know, you have to think outside the box a little bit. And sometimes it might require you to do that little bit of extra work. But I think in the times that we're living in, when, you know, prices of food are going up everywhere, people need to really try to be less afraid and try, if you do have a patch of garden, use it. Where there's a will, there's a way. You can try one thing or two things and see what you're good at and just keep going.
We are living in a very complicated time. right now for more reasons than one. I think we have, especially in the West, we have been raised in a culture where women have been sort of ripped away from the enjoyment of having these skills and having a relationship with the kitchen. I mean, even with the red pill community or the Muslim red pill community, you know, they tell us that they want us to be better in the kitchen, but they also use it, like this make me a sandwich comment, you know, like they also use it to degrade you. And the thing is, they really need to be ignored. When we are doing something like this, when we are developing a relationship with food, with cooking, with the kitchen, with our homes, with our kids, and all the many other areas, we're doing it for the sake of Allah. Yes, we want our spouses to be happy. Yes, we want our families to be happy. But we are doing it for the sake of Allah first. And it doesn't need to be the only thing that's within our identity, but it is an area that we all should embrace, take on. You know, the make me a sandwich comment should not be, you know, a diss. That's the sort of mentality that we should be having. Don't let all this noise get to you. Don't let the pressure of society get to you. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to say that I love my home and I love this traditional role. Just embrace it. You don't even need to say anything. Nobody needs to validate your role in life.
Very well said. I think that's a perfect note to end it on. I hope you all enjoyed all the topics we talked about, our history with the kitchen. I hope it motivated you. I hope it made you excited to begin your culinary journey. As you practice, you will be humble, grateful, and excited to test yourself. The kitchen is a great test. If I can learn, I'm pretty sure you can as well. And don't give up. Keep going, and may Allah reward you for your efforts. Alhamdulillah.
Ameen.
Ameen. Ameen. Barakallahu feekum. Thank you all for listening, and inshallah you're benefited, and inshallah we'll be back with some more topics, maybe similar to on the topic of food, inshallah. So yeah.
If there's anything that we've said in this video that's wrong, it's from us, our limitation and need for knowledge, and any good is from Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.